Okay, so just to recap a bit, we use the gumball tool, talking about how we can drag elements and scale elements, holding the shift key, 3D versus, let's just move this out of the way, and we still have our planar curve here, right? We can scale this in two directions because it's a 2D surface versus one direction, 1D surface or 1D scaling. Same with our box, right? We could scale it one direction or in 2D direction. And then move it based upon these points, or incrementally by clicking and actually assigning a dimension to those. And we talked about revolving to make a solid object. I feel like we didn't finish that tool, did we? I jumped right into the other. Let's go back to the revolve tools because I somehow skipped over the rail revolve. Sorry about that. So let's put these down for a second and go back to drawing a freeform control points. And I'm just going to kind of draw a fairly random shape here. And the regular revolve tool, right, we can select the curve that we want to revolve and then pick an axis that we want to revolve that around and revolve it in 360 degrees, and that gives us a quite unique shape. Maybe it's a doorknob of some sort, or a vase or a lamp, depending on how you draw that thing. You could probably cap it off too to make it a solid. Okay, we got some schizo lights going on in here. But we could also start to revolve this around, instead of just a circle, a 360 degree circle, we can also revolve it around another rail, more or less. And that's what this rail revolve tool does. And so let's go ahead and draw a polygon, and I want to put my end snap on to just kind of get it close to this guy, and then I want to flip my view here so that I'm drawing it in some crazy weird space. Yeah. Basically so that's perpendicular to this line, right? So if we use our revolve rail tool, it says select the profile curve that we want to revolve, which would be our crazy polyline. And then it says select a rail curve, and so that would be our polygon. And then we want to choose an axis, which, let's try utilizing the center. See if we can get the center on there. I'm going to right click to restart that command, clicking the curve. Whoops. Click the curve, click the rail to curve around, and then let's see if we can grab the midpoint. I don't like these snaps. That'll be fine for now, hopefully. Just gonna take some of these snaps off so that good grief. That's an ugly duckling. I'm I'm always trying to press enter. Okay. Let's take the mid off and click center. So if I hover over, if I just have my center snap on and I hover over whatever shape I'm utilizing, it automatically snaps to the center, which is kind of counterintuitive because you think you're snapping along the line, but you're really not. So that actually got me in the center of the polygon. And then I can flip over to my top view to finish that line. And so now we've revolved that wacky shape around a polygon, and then maybe we can start making like cool chair legs or something like that out of that. Some architectural details. I'm sure you can think of some ways to utilize that tool. So getting back to our boxes. We made two boxes in two different ways. One was made from a surface, and one was made from the curve tool. We can start to utilize getting back to, these are 4 or 6 surfaces stuck together, right, to make this solid object. If we exploded it, it's actually 6 separate surfaces. So it's technically hollow inside. But once we do that, you can start to utilize like the split surface by ISO curve, and that's hitting the right button instead of the left button for the split command in our standard sidebar here. Why aren't you working? There we go. So I first selected the object, and then I right-clicked on the split surface tool, and that allows me to start to split this surface. I need to turn off some of my snaps here. And I'm going to right-click to get out of that. But then that allows me to split that surface even further down. And so we could repeat that command. And if you hit T to toggle, or go up to your command line and hit T to toggle, that toggles it to vertical splits. Hit the escape button. At any rate, I'm going to try this one more time because it didn't work for me this morning, and I don't really know why. But you can then start to utilize the extrusion tool manually by hitting the control button, and it doesn't work again. Drives me nuts. So if you get that to work, that's awesome for you. But you hit the control button, you select the object with the gumball on and hit the control button and then your arrow, and that should extrude that surface out to make another solid shape. I haven't gotten it to work yet, so I must have something turned off somewhere in my functions. But that's also something kind of new to V5. So Just curious if we can just straight up split something here. No. Okay, so you have to explode an object to kind of split the surface. You can also Boolean split, which we didn't talk about at the beginning of, or earlier today. But I think that basically has to do with, oh, that's not a box anymore, is it? They're both boxes now. So I'm going to pull one box kind of into the other one, and I'm going to go up to my solid commands and try this Boolean split tool. And it says select cutting surface or poly surface, and then select cutting surface and hit enter. Let's see what happens there. So I did that backwards from what I wanted to do, but it basically splits and cuts out that difference. It's a lot really similar to actually the difference, Boolean difference command. Let's draw like a little more unique shape. Let's check out the ellipsoid solid shape. I'm going to use from center. I'm just going to come out here in space, and it doesn't really matter how big we make this thing. I'm going to now come into 3D space to kind of refine that shape a bit. But this kind of makes an egg shape object. And if we turned on our points, right, which is this points on, you can select points and start to manipulate this object a bit. And I think we talked about this a little bit, but not with this type of shape. But you see how awkward, we start to zoom in here, we get kind of a defined line there. And really the object of this is to be nice and smooth, and so we can use that rebuild tool that we talked about last class. I'm going to select the object, and that allows us to change our degree of this thing from a 2 degree, which is why it's giving us kind of that awkward bend, and we can also add additional points to it. So I'm going to change it to a 3 degree curve, and I'm going to apply 10 points, and basically that adds, if we back into wireframe, it's essentially applying a greater density of mass around, or mesh around, that object. And as a result, you can start to manipulate this shape even further. And if we look at it in the rendered view, you can see that the kinks here are, you know, they flow a little better. They're not as kinky. They're more, there's more continuity and tangentness to them. But if we wanted to create a rectangular surface here and extrude it maybe start putting some kind of tail on this thing, we can Control C V that and then use our rotation tool here, right, to get it to 90 degrees with our gumball. It's like a rocket at impact, right? Pretty terrible. At any rate, we can start to join these things together utilizing our Boolean union or Boolean difference. So if I union them together, they're now all one object. Control Z that just to show you the difference. If I first select the surface or polysurface to subtract from, I could pick my odd shape and then pick those guys. It didn't work. Let's try that again. You can see that those cut out sort of a Phillips head screwdriver looking thing. So if you wanted to start to add detail to something, you know, as far as like screw heads, things like that, that's kind of a useful tool to utilize. You could also use the paraboloid function, right? So you're just drawing that shape, and then you could, you know, subtract similar to those two to kind of create a bolt head of some sort, Phillips bolt head. I want to stick with this object here for a second though and union them together again. And we can start to fillet the surface, fillet the surfaces instead of just filleting the edges. So it's probably going to be too small. But if we scroll in here, it basically did a fillet between this surface and this surface. I'm going to Control Z that actually and make it a lot bigger if I can get out of the command here. I'm going to change my radius to 150, worked last time. Too big. Maybe 100. That was too big too. A little trial and error here because I don't know what size this thing actually is. Okay. Let's keep reducing that. There we go. So we can continue that command all the way around. I'm just right-clicking to repeat the command. So that's all one solid object, but we could always explode it. Come on. Okay, that time I hit the extract surface tool. Seemed to work. And my goal is to try and get this thing to explode. This exploded nice and easy for me last time. Not doing it now. Any rate, you could start to delete these and kind of, you know, close that up. And it's not working for me, so I feel a little rejected by this object right now. Half an hour. But would you look at that? Just must not have been selecting them correctly. Alright. I actually don't know how to close that up. I'm like, I'm thinking like, oh, I know I'm going here. I'm going too far on this one because I didn't actually close it up to begin with, which was silly of me. Go back to stuff that we do know how to do at the moment. So we could also start to fill at the edge. And so some of these, as we join those objects together, they come at a very steep angle to each other, and it's not necessarily realistic. So you can start to soften those edges by using the fill at edge command. So that kind of takes us up to actually looking at this guy. I'm going to select everything else here, and I'm going to dump that stuff on a separate layer. So we don't have to look at it. I'm going to turn that layer off as well. So basically this shape was created from curved line work. So there's kind of the hard way to do this and the easy way to do it. We'll learn kind of how to do it the hard way first, and then we'll do it the easy way. But they both kind of start out similar. So we're going to go ahead and utilize the 2-point circle. And I'm going to turn on my grid snap so that I'm snapping to the grid here. And I'm going to make a big circle. And I'm going to make a little circle. Respectively, anyways. And we can then use the line tool tangent to curves. I didn't show the other class this because I didn't know about it. And we can start to draw a line from tangent point of this curve to the tangent point of this curve. I'm going to repeat that on the bottom side. And we can utilize our trim tool to select these two lines, hit enter, and then trim out what we don't want in between. And so we can then select those lines and join them together using our join tool. And once we do that, we could extrude a planar curve to make our shape, right? The other way we could do that is to, or is it create a surface, right? Extend surface. Drives me crazy. I can't find stuff through here. Extrude surface. What was that tool that I used before? Yeah. Make surface. I don't think so. This drives me crazy because I had it this morning. So this is the really hard way, right? So what we basically did was we extruded the curve itself, right? And then you could type in cap, and that caps it off. I feel like that's what I did this morning. I don't remember. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So either way, you come out with a shape that's a solid, right? Because we either extruded the curves and then capped it, or extruded the curves as a surface itself, and it does it automatically. And then we could go to our solid command and create a cylinder, snapping using the center snap to this radius. And extruding a cylinder through. And then utilize a Boolean difference to create that hole. And then fillet the edges. Right, to create that similar fillet. Or you could create the 2D line work like we did here. So if we digress here and Control Z this stuff, go back to our curve and create a secondary circle. and then extrude planar curve like we started out with. And we go into this view to get it. We make the same shape. So there are many means and methods to creating the exact same shape. We did like 3 or 4 right there, I think. So whatever kind of method that you're comfortable with doing, you know, utilize that. So let's go ahead and pause the video for a second. And okay, I'm online. Let's get Blackboard up here. So that's not the picture that I want. So I want to download this this image. Kidding me? And I'm just going to throw it on, I guess, my documents for now. And we can go into our right view and type in picture frame. What do you mean there's no object, just select? Oh. You kidding me? There we go. Selecting the wrong thing. I gotta read a little bit here. So I typed in picture frame and I have no idea what's going to come up, but I'm going to grab my picture here and I'm going to go ahead. I'm probably about doing this upside down is my guess. More or less. I can insert this image in and I can scale it using our 2D scale. And I know I'm going to turn off my grid snap. I know that this point, let's just eyeball it here. It should be 4 inches. And so I basically now have this drawing, this to our scale, and we can utilize this to start tracing and making our work lines, right? So we can use singular lines here. And I could make one that's, what is that, 21.5. Hit the shift key and then offset that. by 1 inch. What am I doing here? Right click, offset 1 inch. Another curve. Get my end snap on. Do our 17.5 inches, right? Is that right? Doesn't look right, does it? It's not scaled right. I know, that's pretty darn close. Close enough. Class is over. But at any rate, you can utilize the picture frame to start to eyeball how to start to create that the frame.